Tonight, prepare to evacuate. Some parts of the state put on alert following another round of flooding. The Immigration Minister issues a new deportation directive for serious criminals who aren't citizens. Peter Costello under pressure. The Nine chairman denies allegations he assaulted a journalist. Winton for the win. Laura Jones takes out the Archibald Prize for her portrait of the celebrated author. And the upsets are bigger in Texas. The US cricket team defeats Pakistan at the T20 World Cup in Dallas. Good evening, Nakari, Thorpe with ABC News. Also tonight in this extended 35-minute bulletin, a special State Line interview with Senior Minister Rose Jackson on the crisis in social housing. But first to the flood emergency in New South Wales. Some residents could find themselves isolated this long weekend following another round of wet weather. Dozens of rescues have been carried out since midnight, with prepare to evacuate warnings in place in parts of the Hawkesbury and Macarthur regions.
A lucky escape for two drivers trapped in floodwaters. After heavy rain overnight, this bridge in Menangle, southwest of Sydney, ended up underwater. The drivers managing to leave unscathed.
The most important message we can send is don't drive through floodwaters. You could risk your own life.
The SES carried out more than 60 flood rescues in a day after some regions were drenched with heavy rain.
Some places have had over 200 millimetres of rain, particularly around the Illawarra area, which is well over a month's worth of rainfall in 24 hours. And in some places, that's approaching 2 months' worth of rainfall for this time of year on average.
Parts of Camden and Sydney's southwest have been issued with flood evacuation warnings by the SES.
It's very inconvenient that the shortcut way, we've now got to go around the long way. If there's an emergency, it's a matter of life or death, depending if this road is open or not.
Just down the road in Picton, a prepare to evacuate warning was downgraded to watch and act.
Now, we've got to prepare every time like it's going to come, and I think it's very tiring and frustrating to have this happen so often.
We can't keep having the situation that we're having where we have to sandbag.
Warragamba Dam began spilling in the early hours of Friday morning, the third time it's spilled since April. Emergency services are now keeping a close eye on areas downstream of the dam before river levels are expected to fall over the weekend and drop back to minor levels. For now, the bridge at North Richmond has been closed, and properties in the Groness Point area are being warned they could be isolated this long weekend. Chantel Alcouri, ABC News.
After weeks of sustained pressure, Immigration Minister Andrew Giles has issued a new directive he says will make it clearer that non-citizens with a history of serious crime should be deported, even if they've lived most of their lives in Australia. The opposition says it doesn't go far enough, while New Zealand has continued to express its concern.
Fronting up to deliver a new direction.
The Australian government expects community protection to be given greater weight when it comes to visa decisions.
That signal prompted by criticism of Direction 99, which led to several non-citizens with serious criminal records escaping deportation.
We need to give a very clear signal to decision makers that decisions should be made based on common sense.
Minister Giles spending weeks defending issuing the direction last year that ensured a non-citizen's ties to Australia be a key consideration in visa cases. Direction 99 making way for Direction 110. The highest priority, the safety of the Australian community, insisting that family violence is so serious it should outweigh other factors, and that the impact on victims must be considered. The direction's contentious section on community ties remains, but it's been stripped back.
These are clear, crystal clear directions to decision makers.
Not clear enough, according to the opposition.
I can't believe that it's taken this long to make such a minor adjustment, which in the end is still going to allow criminals to stay here.
But it's a big enough adjustment to cause concern across the ditch, given the original direction was written to address long-held concerns from New Zealand.
It's just not right that we think that people have no connection to New Zealand are deported to New Zealand.
There are circumstances where it is better for the community, and certainly for that individual and their children to stay together.
The clean-up of the issues stemming from Direction 99 is continuing. The Minister has now cancelled the visas of 40 foreign nationals convicted of serious crimes. There's another 10 visa decisions he'll be closely watching before the new direction comes in on June 21. Whether the changes work the way the government wants them to remains unclear. Monty Boval, ABC News, Canberra.
Nine Entertainment chairman Peter Costello has denied allegations he assaulted a journalist at Canberra Airport. A video posted online appears to show a reporter falling over after asking the former treasurer about a sexual harassment scandal at Nine.
Get in front and I'll come and talk to you, all right? Yeah, that's a much better way of doing it. Otherwise you'll fall over each other. 2 decades on from setting the agenda in Canberra, former Treasurer Peter Costello, now the chair of Nine Entertainment, is making headlines after this altercation with a journalist.
I did not lay a finger or a fist or anything else on him.
Like a controversial decision in the footy, there's some guesswork.
Sometimes when they're walking backwards, some have the ability to stay upright, others don't.
I've known Peter Costello for many years and I've never known or found him to be aggressive in nature.
And a rebuke from the current Treasurer.
I think it's really important that we treat journalists with respect, that journalists are safe in their workplace, and if anyone should know that, it should be the chairman of a major media organisation.
But the episode is a symptom of a bigger issue. The Nine conglomerate is dealing with the fallout of the departure of long-time senior leader Darren Wick, who left after serious claims of inappropriate behaviour towards staff.
There's already speculation that this could put your chairmanship at risk. What is your response to that?
Rubbish.
What we're seeing clearly here is the effect of gravity. Not just in the collision of two moving people, but in movement on issues long known about, but not dealt with. Changes to workplace law are radically altering how businesses must deal with bullying and sexual harassment.
Under the new GIDI, they're expected to provide a safe place of work. So instead of waiting for the complaint to come through, which is in a sense acting after the horse has bolted, you've got to prevent that problem occurring at all.
Nine Entertainment isn't alone in dealing with difficult issues. A survey of staff in the ABC's news division revealed almost a third had experienced bullying in the past 2 years. Daniel Ziffer, ABC News.
And Channel 7 has confirmed it's investigating allegations of inappropriate behaviour by senior journalist Robert Ovadia. A network spokesperson says Ovadia is currently on leave while an internal investigation takes place. In a statement, the veteran crime reporter says any suggestion he's behaved inappropriately at any time is false and will be defended. He says he hasn't been told of any complaints made against him by any current or former colleagues. A woman has been charged after a man was found dead in the driveway of a block of flats in Sydney South. Emergency crews were called to the Engadine complex at around 3 this morning, where they found the 36-year-old man unresponsive. Paramedics tried to revive him, but he was pronounced dead at the scene. A 33-year-old woman who was known to the man was arrested and taken to Sutherland Police Station and failed mandatory drug and alcohol testing. Police on the Greek island of Symi are ramping up their search for missing health expert and wellness advocate Dr Michael Mosley. The British broadcaster did not return after a walk from a local beach, and police fear he may have fallen from a height.
Australia has this international reputation for being sporty, fit and super healthy, but is it really true?
Dr Michael Mosley burst onto our screens with his health advice. How to live longer, eat and sleep better, and exercise more efficiently. But he was perhaps best known for his advocacy of intermittent fasting.
These sort of foods.
Now a land, sea and air search is underway for the broadcaster, who failed to return back from the beach on the Greek island of Symi. Greek police say the 67-year-old left his wife at St Nicholas Beach, then set off to walk back alone to his holiday stay in the village of Pedi, but never made it. Dr Mosley's wife, Dr Claire Bailey, who often co-hosted shows with her husband, raised the alarm. Local search teams have been beefed up with support from Athens, and the search area has been widened.
All the rescue teams of the island are looking to find him. With drones, they are into all the island.
Dr Mosley set off in sweltering heat, likely across rugged terrain. But with no trace of the father of four yet, Greek authorities have vowed to keep up the search until he is found. Jenny Lavelle, ABC News.
A love of conservation has brought together the winning artist and subject at this year's Archibald Prize. Laura Jones won for her portrait of celebrated author Tim Winton. Her friendship with the man who wrote Cloud Street has helped put the painter on cloud nine.
It's a case of fourth time lucky for this year's Archibald winner Laura Jones.
As a little girl in Kurrajong, I dreamed about being an artist. I've been lucky enough to make that dream come true.
Her portrait of prolific author Tim Winton captures his concern for the Ningaloo Reef in Western Australia, an issue the pair bonded over.
He thought he looked like he had the weight of the world on his shoulders, but he does.
Today we begin on the reef.
Winton has been a vocal advocate for the protection of the reef, captured in a documentary released last year.
He said about Ningaloo that it's a place that could teach us how to get things right if we just pause a moment and listen.
This year also marks a big win for First Nations artists. The gallery received a record number of Indigenous entrants, and Aboriginal painters have taken out both the Wynne and Sulman prizes.
It shows the songs of the seven sisters in the stars, crying. Now I am crying, but this time with happiness.
The Sulman Prize for genre or mural painting was won by Naomi Kantjirani, accepted on her behalf by colleague and fellow finalist Muna Kulyuru. All finalists will be on show at the Art Gallery of New South Wales until September. Sean Tarek Goodwin, ABC News, Sydney.
The United States is calling on Israel to be more transparent after a targeted strike on a school building killed at least 40 people. The Israeli Defence Force claims multiple Hamas operatives died in the central Gaza attack, where thousands of civilians had been sheltering.
Devastating grief after a terrifying pre-dawn strike. Dozens of Palestinians, including as many as 14 children, killed in their makeshift beds.
We were sleeping when we suddenly saw a rocket falling on us.
UNRWA says about 6,000 people were taking shelter at the school in central Gaza.
People's remains were scattered inside the yard and outside. The children died while screaming.
The Israeli army says it was a precise strike on Hamas militants who were operating there, and claims satellite images prove it wasn't targeting sections of the building where civilians were taking shelter.
Our intelligence and surveillance indicated that there were no women or children inside the Hamas compound.
Attacking, targeting or using United Nations buildings for military purposes are a blatant and disregard of international humanitarian law.
This latest attack inside Gaza has prompted an extraordinary intervention by the United States. The White House is calling on Israel to be fully transparent with the public. It's rare for the US to publicly question the credibility of Israel, but it wants the IDF to identify all of the militants it says it has killed in this new strike.
Even if the intent is what the IDF has said publicly, that they were trying to use a precision strike, if you have seen 14 children die in that strike, that shows that something went wrong.
The escalation comes at a sensitive time for ceasefire negotiations. After 8 dreadful months, pressure has never been greater on Israel and Hamas to reach a peace deal. But as the war rages day after day, it's civilians who are paying the ultimate price. John Lyons, ABC News.
US President Joe Biden has drawn parallels between Russia's invasion of Ukraine and World War II. Speaking at the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landings in France, he vowed the United States would not walk away from the conflict.
A strong alliance 80 years ago and today. US President Joe Biden was alive in 1944 during the D-Day landings on the beaches of Normandy in France, the start of the Allied campaign to liberate Nazi-occupied Europe.
We know the dark forces that these heroes fought against 80 years ago. They never fade.
Speaking just metres from where more than 9,000 US servicemen are buried and in front of their few comrades still alive, Mr Biden used the moment to reaffirm his commitment to stand with NATO against Russia.
And it will not end there. Ukraine's neighbours will be threatened. All of Europe will be threatened. We cannot let that happen.
Allied world leaders and diplomats, including Australia's Governor-General David Hurley, are in Normandy paying their respects. Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky was also among them.
Oh, you're the saviour of the people. Here's my eyes.
Despite being an ally of France during World War II, President Emmanuel Macron did not invite Russia.
World leaders are meeting on the sidelines of commemorations as Ukraine seeks a greater role from its allies in its defence against Russia. With the war raging on Europe's border, this D-Day anniversary carries special resonance.
When you go home, tell them of us and say, for your tomorrow, we gave our today.
Hearing of the sacrifice through the few who survived. Rani Heyman, ABC News, London.
Last weekend's fatal explosion at a townhouse in Western Sydney has put social housing back in the spotlight. Almost 60,000 people in New South Wales are currently on the waiting list. But some of those who have got in say they still feel like second-class citizens. Tenants at the Wayland property reported smelling gas weeks earlier. Now they're wondering if something could have been done to prevent the tragedy. The ABC has spoken to others who've complained about the poor condition of their homes. State political reporter Nick Dole sat down with the Housing Minister Rose Jackson for this special State Line interview.
Hello, good.
Thanks for doing this.
No worries.
Busy day.
Yes. It's just
Okay, yeah, so we'll just get please.
Rose Jackson, thanks for your time.
No worries, good to be here.
The fatal explosion at a social housing property at Wayland last weekend highlighted some concerns of tenants, including complaints about the smell of gas in the past. As the Minister, you said that the department would look through some of the maintenance logs. What have you found?
So we've managed to get maintenance logs off our contractor, and it's important to note that at the moment, under the current contract, all of the management of maintenance is outsourced. So we have to work with the private contractor to get access to those logs. There is some indication that on two sort of previous instances there had been issues around the smell of gas on the gas meter. That's at the front of the property. They were quite promptly responded to, and sort of bits were replaced and things were checked. And there doesn't seem to have been, from what our records show, any sort of further issues with that. But we will be fully cooperating with the investigation that the police are obviously undertaking right now to determine what did cause the explosion. And then from there, it's obvious a question of, well, once we know, was it preventable? What could we have done?
On paper, at least, from what you've seen, you believe that the maintenance jobs were done correctly.
That's right. From what I've seen, I do have confidence that those two issues that were reported were very quickly dealt with. And that's, based on having a look at the response times and the reported work done. And just earlier today, I spoke with the mother of the young woman who tragically died, Mercy, and it was heartbreaking to talk to her about the loss of her daughter Jasmine, and obviously I expressed the deepest condolences of the New South Wales Government. So I take this very seriously, take this extremely seriously.
The ABC's been speaking to some social housing tenants this week who've told us they've been living with rodent infestations that have taken months to address. Some have had their gutters leaking for 7 or 8 years, whose children are getting sick because of mould in the roof. As the Minister responsible, does it embarrass you that these tenants are feeling like second-class citizens?
Yeah, it does. I hate the fact that people in public housing don't feel as though their concerns are listened to and that they're respected by government. Obviously, I do want to emphasise that's a contract that we're changing. From the 1st of July this year, I've made the decision to insource all of those points. That's one of the reasons why I redid the maintenance contract. Those stories that you've heard, they're real. I've heard them myself. The people call my office, write to my office, contact me when I go out and visit public housing. And, you know, we run a sort of pretty heavy triage service through my office, constantly trying to respond to those kind of issues as they come up.
And you've been intervening a few times yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. It shouldn't come to that, though. It should. Every time I do that and my office does that, you know, I make a little note that it's good that we've been able to do that, but it should not be that people in public housing have to go all the way to the Minister to have basic work done.
There's many people who can't even get into social housing. The waiting list for individuals and families, I think, is about 58,000 at the moment. With the budget coming up, what plans do you have to try to get that wait list down?
Look, I know this is one of, you know, the favourite things that people try and do, you know, get us to you know, pre-announce budgets.
Look, putting the budget aside then, what are your plans to get that wait list down? Because that was a key sort of commitment, wasn't it?
It's build more public housing. I mean, you are right to identify the waiting list is very long, and we've already done hundreds of vacant restorations, so turning homes that were uninhabitable, the kind of places that you'd see around boarded up, you knew, oh, that's old public housing, you know, left to rot. We fix them up and we have families living in them. But there is more to do. There is more to come. We just have to invest the money to build the homes that we need. It should be seen as essential infrastructure. You know, we think nothing of spending hundreds of millions of dollars or more on roads or on transport. And they're very important things, but homes for people to live in are just as important.
Are you winning that argument in government?
Yeah, I think I am. My priority is bringing down the priority wait list. And, you know, I have to be honest, that's the thing that really keeps me up at night. And that's people who are, you know, really in desperate need, at risk of or experiencing homelessness, women and children leaving domestic violence, people with a disability. And that list, which has gone up by almost 15% in recent years, is of huge concern to me. So success is bringing that list down. It is also just building new homes.
The government has acknowledged that we're not building nearly enough homes in New South Wales. It's one of the reasons that the government's zoning for major sort of high-rises around railway lines and transport hubs. The government had an opportunity to set requirements for developers to contribute to affordable housing. Why was it only 2% when there are so many essential workers that can't afford to live close to work?
Yeah, well, it was 2% for the tranche 2 TODs, transport-oriented development zones. It was 15% for the accelerated zones. Is the 2% the gold standard? No. Would I like to see more? Absolutely. But it's a baseline, it's something to work off. And if we set things like affordable housing targets too high, it stops projects getting off the ground. So we're trying to get that balance right. We've set the baseline. For the first time, we've said it's a mandate that affordable housing must be in there, and let's see where we can go from there.
Rose Jackson, thanks for your time.
Love to chat. I actually do love to chat. So I say it's been quite the week, and then every week it seems like it.
Well, turning to finance now, here's David Chow.
Well, interest rates are starting to come down overseas, but not here just yet. Overnight, the European Central Bank slashed its rates for the first time in 5 years. The Europeans have come a long way in their fight against inflation, which has dropped from more than 10% a couple of years ago to now just under 2.5%. Unfortunately, Australia hasn't had as much success with its attempts to ease cost of living pressures. So that's why there's only a 46% chance that the Reserve Bank will cut the cash rate by Christmas. While markets are betting, at the other extreme, that the US, Canada and Europe will almost certainly cut rates twice, maybe even 3 times by the end of this year. And one reason why Australia is struggling to bring inflation down is that households are still spending big, especially on essentials like healthcare, which has gone up 15.7% in the year to April. No thanks to private health insurance. Unfortunately, it's just not one of those things you can easily stop spending on, unlike fashion and recreation, which is down quite a bit. Meanwhile, the share market rose by 0.5% today. And after going up for 3 days in a row, the All Ords has gained 1.8% for the week, which is pretty strong. And today's best performing stock was IDP Education, which rebounded sharply from yesterday's sell-off. Now overseas, it was a mixed bag with Wall Street flat, Asian markets down, and Britain's FTSE a little bit higher. Gold, oil and iron ore prices went up, while the Aussie dollar is buying 66.7 US cents. And that's finance.
The first best-of-3 series in the Women's State of Origin will end in a decider. The Maroons levelled with the series against the Sky Blues, kicking a field goal with minutes to spare.
Deep in enemy territory in Newcastle, on exhausted legs, Queensland had just minutes left to save the series.
Goes to Brown, has time, drills it! What a kick! Lauren Brown!
The Maroons hero nailing a pinpoint 25-metre field goal in the toughest of conditions to play rugby league.
That was insane. Yeah, that's true Origin football. It's so good for our game to play a game of footy like that.
Queensland trailed until that point as the Sky Blues were the first to score. But the Maroons kept within striking distance.
Queensland scores!
After conceding a try late, it was a stroke of genius that swung the momentum back Queensland's way.
And what a play!
The game was there for us to take in several different stages. It didn't happen. That's footy.
Knowing that our backs were against the wall after game one, no one probably gave us any hope at all. We were written off, which as Queenslanders we didn't like.
The Maroons will now look to win back-to-back shields when they host the Sky Blues in Game 3 in Townsville, the first time it's ever gone to a true decider.
Great for the game. It's 1-1 and we get to go back to work and get up to Townsville and try and get the shield up in Queensland. We've seen you play better up in Queensland anyway.
Jessica Stewart, ABC News.
Broncos coach Kevin Walters has called for tougher penalties after his fullback Reece Walsh was knocked out in the men's Origin opener. Joseph Swalei accepted a 4-match early guilty plea for the shot, which also saw him sent off. Walsh will miss at least 2 club matches due to the concussion.
Well, the NRL have got to protect him. That's who's got to protect him and be harder on the suspensions. Like 4 weeks for what he actually did. Crossing the line's a big one for me. That's the second time it's happened, and 4 weeks for me is not enough.
The women's top seed Iga Swiatek is through to the final of the French Open at Roland Garros. The Pole beat American third seed Coco Gauff in straight sets, 6-2, 6-4. She's aiming for her 3rd straight French Open title. Swiatek will face Jasmine Paolini in the decider on Saturday after the Italian 12th seed defeated teenager Mira Andreeva 6-3, 6-1. The Socceroos have defeated Bangladesh 2-0 in their World Cup qualifying match in Dhaka. Aiden Hustich scored in the first half with his long-range shot took a deflection and was later awarded an own goal. Cassini Yengi made it 2-0 in the second half with a well-placed header. The Boston Celtics have taken the opening game of the NBA Finals, beating the Dallas Mavericks by 18 points. Jaylen Brown scored a team-high 22 points to go along with 6 rebounds in the 107-89 victory. Well, most Americans are baffled when the sport of cricket is mentioned, but that hasn't stopped their national team pulling off an upset for the ages. Team USA defeated Pakistan in a super over at the T20 World Cup in front of a home crowd in Texas.
Minnows of world cricket causing an upset on the world stage.
The red, white and blue of USA has overcome the 2022 finalists.
Taking place in a converted baseball stadium in a Dallas suburb that had never staged a cricket match until last year, few people expected the United States to take it to the 6th-ranked Pakistan, a test-playing country where cricket is the most popular sport. An engineer when he's not playing, Shaurab Netravalkar took centre stage in the American bowling attack, taking little time to stake his claim on home soil.
That's beautifully bowled. Oh my goodness, what a blinder that is! That is absolutely sensational.
Some fans chose to mask their identities, others wore their allegiance on their sleeves and heads, overjoyed with the historic victory.
And they have back-to-back wins. One of them highly unexpected, but highly inspiring.
The incredible performance by the US could further propel cricket in a country more familiar with bases than stumps.
It's a big day for Team USA, and I would say not just for USA, for USA cricket community too.
I am upset. We are not playing good in all three departments. We are better than that.
Pakistan's tournament hopes now hang in the balance ahead of a must-win clash against rivals India. Fraser Fife, ABC News.
Sydney's Taronga Zoo has had plenty of famous visitors over the years, but few have been as welcome as today's guest, world-renowned environmentalist Dr. Jane Goodall.
They say to never meet your heroes, but for these children, Dr. Jane Goodall exceeded all expectations.
I thought, wouldn't it be amazing to meet her one day? Now, I never thought that day would come, but here it is. I'm so happy.
Arabella is writing a children's book about a baby gorilla at her local wildlife park. It's her way of carrying on the work of the renowned environmentalist.
Thank you, thank you. That was like the most amazing thing I've ever done. Found out
After a few moments of unsteadiness,
we went to...
the 90-year-old spent hours speaking to some of the young minds she's inspired.
Straight down a story. Horrible.
Sharing more than 60 years of environmental expertise with grant recipients of her Roots and Shoots programs.
It's magic, and, you know, going around the world, I meet this everywhere. So we've now got Roots and Shoots in 70 countries.
But the kids weren't her only commitment for the day. This visit to Taronga Zoo's chimpanzees was a brief pause in the 90-year-old's national speaking tour, where she's sharing the reasons she still holds on to hope for wildlife conservation.
People who tackle what seems impossible and won't give up. Yeah, those are the reasons for hope, and it's working.
Inspiring generations of environmentalists. Melissa McKay, ABC News, Sydney.
Well, to the weather now, and Tom, a major soaking to start winter.
Nakari, up to 300 millimetres has fallen across the Illawarra during the past 48 hours. That's around double the June average. And so far this month, much of eastern New South Wales has received at least 50 millimetres. Sydney has collected more than 215 millimetres. That's already 85 millimetres above the city's June average. Last night, it was again the Illawarra hammered by the most intense falls. In the 24 hours to 9 a.m, Cringilla 215 millimetres, Albion Park 156 and Mossvale, which is in the Warragamba catchment, 127. The wettest suburb of Sydney, Campbelltown, picked up 79 millimetres. The rain band then shifted down the coast today. Since 9 a.m, another 51 millimetres at Jarvis Bay. Ulladulla's seen 38 millimetres, and right now some of the heaviest rain has moved to around Canberra. Rain mostly cleared from Sydney this morning. However, a few heavy showers returned in the afternoon, and a brief line of thunderstorms clipped the eastern suburbs at around 5 p.m. Cloud and rain kept overnight temperatures mild. Lows of 12 to 13 were as much as 7 above the average across the west. We climbed to 19 in the city. That was 2 above average. However, 16 in Campbelltown was 2 below. Statewide minimums were as much as 9 above on the south coast, although it was frosty along the northern ranges. Maximums today were again warm across the south, and it was colder in the north. Tamworth 11, their coldest day in 12 months. On the satellite, cloud is circulating around a Tasman low. That low pressure system slowly heading towards the south. On the chart tomorrow, the low will shift away from the coastline, allowing most of the rain to clear. So around the country then, a possible late shower in Melbourne, slight risk of a shower for Canberra. For the northeast, a medium chance of showers on and west of the ranges. A mostly sunny day for coastal districts, and highs should reach around 20 degrees. For the southeast, it's a delayed start to the ski season due to the recent warm weather and rainfall, and further showers and not snow tomorrow, a top of 6 degrees in Thredbo. That's 4 above their June average. Also, the chance of light showers tomorrow continuing for the coastline and the central and southern tablelands. To the west, the chance of early fog, then mostly sunny. Just the odd shower around the northwest slopes and plains. On the waters, strong winds south of Seal Rocks. They'll reach gale force later off the Bateman's coast, seas climbing up to 3 metres. For Sydney, another band of showers has just popped up on the radar, but these showers will clear overnight. Partly cloudy tomorrow. Still a possible shower for the coastline, but dry inland. Mostly light winds, 10 to 21 for the city. That's mild. A high of 20 for most of the west. The sun will rise at 6:54. And ahead, mostly sunny for Sunday and public holiday Monday. Tops remaining at around 19 to 20 degrees. And it will stay dry through most of next week. Those maximums still hitting the high teens. Nakari.
Tom, thank you. Well, that's all from ABC News. Good night.